we are going to go ahead and launch right into the program. I'm going to turn it over to these gentlemen to share a little bit about the work they've done in committees, what we've seen come out of session, and what maybe you haven't seen but are interested in. Luckily, our microphone's not very loud, but I know these gentlemen have commanding voices, so please listen carefully. We will hopefully have a little time for Q&A at the end. But with that, Senator MacEwen.
Thank you, Deidre. Good morning. I'm going to skip the microphone. If you can't hear me, let me know. We'll adjust. Great to be here. It is an honor to truly to serve you at Olympia and to have done that over the years. And always enjoy doing these and hearing from you and what your concerns are. And that's more vital, I think, to listening to what you have to say as opposed to what we have to say. Having said that, I think kind of our plan was we'll each talk about our primary committee work that went on and what legislation came out of those committees. And so for myself, I'm the ranking member on Energy, Environment, and Technology, and it was a rather contentious session around those issues. A lot of it involves the Climate Commitment Act, which is our current state law that mandates the reduction of carbon emissions between now and 2050, and meeting companies have to either buy credits or reduce their outputs to stay below this declining line. And that's caused a significant increase in energy prices across the board. That's affected a lot of working families. I think there's a better way we could have done it, but you know, we've offered solutions up to address that, but those have largely gone unheard. So there'll be an initiative this year on the ballot that deals with that, and we'll see how the people of the state feel. They voted down enacting this type of legislation a few years ago, and so now that the legislation is here, this is the opportunity for voters to decide whether to keep it or get rid of it, and that'll have a profound impact either direction on what happens with that legislation. But I think one of the more larger ones that I'm very concerned about, because it directs the future of our state and how we deal with energy, is House Bill 1589 that dealt with natural gas and Puget Sound Energy. Puget Sound Energy does not serve Mason County, but it does have a large swath of residents throughout the Puget Sound region. And what this bill does, no, it does not ban natural gas, but it starts the process to take PSC, to have PSC remove natural gas as an energy source. And why is this a big issue? We don't have another way to energize and make up for that, the removal of natural gas. We don't have the transmission capability if we had the generating facilities, and if we had the transmission capabilities, we don't have the generating facilities. And that is, to me, one of the biggest crux of that bill. And what it does is, Puget Sound Energy, a lot of people don't know, it's a foreign-held corporation. It's not a U.S. Company. It's held by foreign nationals. And it subsidizes, at the expense of ratepayers, Puget Sound Energy's ability to go and build new generating facilities and raise rates ahead of doing that. So if you're a customer, you end up having to pay higher energy rates in order for them to build new facilities that'll benefit them directly. I have a very serious problem with doing that. That's asking the ratepayers to pay for something that's not online yet. And where this is ultimately heading under this administration, the governor has made clear that he doesn't want to have natural gas. Well, it burns 20% cleaner than other forms of energy. That's a fact. Why would we take that away and not have something to back it up with? And that's going to affect energy prices throughout the state, and it's going to affect you whether or not you are a PSC customer, because guess what? The state is a PSC customer, our universities are a PSC customer, and that's going to have a significant impact on the rates subsequently then on down to taxpayers. So that was a piece of legislation that we tried very hard to defeat in the Senate. We were able to last year, and this year when it came to a vote, we went all in to defeat it, and made a number of motions on it, one of which the Lieutenant Governor agreed with us on. And I'm going to quote him. This is not my quote, because when we asked for a ruling from him on the way the legislation was written, he said, "This is a hot mess." And this is in the final week, 2 weeks of session. So they had to go back to the drawing board, rewrite this entire bill, massive piece of legislation, and bring it to a vote then with 2 days to go or 3 days to go in session, and have the audacity to say, "Oh, now it's transparent." Well, no, that's not. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And it ended up getting out of the Senate then and went over to the House where they can talk about what happened there. And they stayed up till 2, 3 in the morning, and it passed with 50 votes, which is what's needed to make a bill into law. And I think it's going to have some dire consequences across the state. So that is a major issue that we're going to continue to watch and see what happens. But at the end of the day, folks, what we got to do in this state, we have got to increase not only our ability to generate that power, whatever form it may be, but we've also got to be able to transmit it. And we are woefully behind on both those fronts. And that has an impact on economic growth, on our ability to create more jobs, because you can't bring in more business if you don't have the ability to power them. It affects housing prices. And until we get a handle on that, we can't continue to be forcing things down taxpayers and consumers' throats that aren't working. And that has been my biggest challenge in that committee since I took it over 2 years ago. And we're going to continue to argue on that and make our point. But again, the voters are going to have a say this November. Since it goes to the ballot, I cannot advocate for you other than to tell you should vote and vote your conscience and don't disappoint me. No, but vote how you feel on it, but you're going to have a say in it, and that's the important part of it on the Climate Commitment Act. So with that, I'm going to flip it back to these guys, and then we'll go through our policy areas and then take your questions.
Well, good morning, everyone. I think you know who I am, but you're supposed to say this. So my name is Dan Griffey, and I represent you in the legislature, and I have for the last 10 years. My policy work that I do, I've been on Public Safety Committee, and I'm not going to lie, the last 4 to 6 years has been really challenging and scary. There's a failed experiment that the majority party has tried, and they're still doubling down on that failed experiment. But you, the voters, spoke. We now, law enforcement has the right to pursue people that they have evidence have committed a crime. I mean, that is a big deal. By the majority party suspending that rule, that law, and crippling their ability to do it, they embolden criminal behavior, and those people that would injure society knew that all they had to do if they committed a crime was run, and they still believe that. The good news about your initiative that passed the legislature, and the majority party, with a lot of pressure from us, hearing that bill and actually moving it, is changing things. If you look, and I ask that you do, because you need to say thank you to the dear sheriff and our Mesa County deputies, Thurston County deputies, and Kitsap County deputies, because I represent 3 counties. They're doing yeoman's work. Every night tragedy happens, and we have dedicated law enforcement officers that are rising to the occasion, and we need to say thank you. Our civil society needs rules that are enforceable. The horrible thing, and the thing that makes it so hard, is on one side, the majority party wants to make crime and punishment lighter, and on the other side, they pass other bills and policies to counteract all the negativity they had here. No, let's hold people accountable. Human development, it is necessary in human development, right? It is necessary for the human animal to be accountable for their actions. It is imperative that negative consequences happen for negative actions. It is absolutely imperative. And right now, over the last 6 years, we've been going the wrong direction. And we didn't really move the needle in the right direction, except for police pursuit, which is a major win. We had a Crime Victim Survivors Bill of Rights that the Senate Minority Leader ran, that sailed through the Senate and died in my committee, completely died. What does it hurt those that want criminal justice reform? What does it hurt to recognize those that are victimized by the people they want to support need some rights and some responsibilities articulated, enumerated from the government? It doesn't hurt anything. It balances the playing field. The other committee I serve on is the local government committee, and we do a lot of tax policy, that sort of thing. We did really well for taxpayers on that this year as well. There was a lot of taxes that, huge tax increases that were proposed. One of the concerns that I know everyone has in this room is affordability and availability of housing. We fight in local government all day long with the majority party. All the policies and all the laws that they want to pass actually hurt or move us in the wrong direction. They want more regulation, more red tape, more taxes. And as an example of that, any of you do short-term rentals? Not everybody does, but if you do a short-term rental, that would be like a bed and breakfast where people could stay overnight. The majority party wanted to assess a 20% tax on those, an excess 20% tax. Now, by the way, they pay hotel motel taxes because it's considered that for those that stay. They also pay higher other taxes because it's a business. They wanted to impose another 20% tax on them because they didn't like the fact that they were keeping those houses in short-term rental status. Well, here's the problem. If it's mine, the government doesn't have the right or responsibility to tell me what I can and cannot do with it. That unpredictability is why we're having so much problem with people staying in the rental market. It's the reason why we don't have enough rental units any longer to house people. Because right now, it is almost impossible to evict someone. They could just abscond for years. During COVID, sometimes people didn't pay their rent for 2 months. Heck, there was an Olympia City Council member that bragged on Facebook that she is joining the dropout movement and she's going to teach those dang landlords a lesson. We cannot, and didn't pay her bills, and she advertised it. I mean, heck, you're in government. I know what they make. She can pay her her rental agreement. They actually make more than we do, by the way. And then I serve on the Transportation Committee. And on the Transportation Committee, this community, this county, this district really needs a lot of help. We talk about the Highway 3 Freight Corridor, formerly known as the Belfair Bypass, all the time, right? I believe we're going to build the thing now. I really do. We have passed the environmental challenge, environmental impact challenge. We are now in the purchase of land state, and man, I never thought we would get here, but we are here. There is money, enough money there to purchase the land, and I believe we can get it off the ground this year. So purchasing the land is a real big step. It took a lot of last minute negotiating and moving and changing the implementation language in the bill. And we spent a lot of time on that work. But we spent a lot of time mandating that Washington State would be the only state in the union that would have a special kind of tire. I don't know if you guys understand the economy of this, which you probably do since it's a chamber, but if Washington State is the only state in the union that says you have to have this type of tire, what is it going to do to the cost of tires and availability of tires? Do you think it's going to be cheaper and more available, or is it going to be more expensive and way less available? Well, we made that argument and we were able to defeat the bill. There's some special secret tires out there, I guess, that with less traction and less rolling friction actually give you better fuel economy and you stop better. And I'm like, those don't work. You can't have less friction, better stopping ability. We made the argument and the argument stood, so you don't have to buy Washington-only tires. I think I'll sit down and wait till you guys... in local government, one last thing, Travis, thank you for helping me out on that. We told them they've added more planning elements to the GMA over the last several years, which we fought against because there's way too many. Those that serve in county government, you would probably agree with me, it's pretty tough to comply with the GMA planning requirements. They added so many requirements that Mason County reached out to me and said, hey, we need more time. We cannot enter into, there's not enough contractors at Department of Commerce to enter in and do the work. And so we got them 6 more months. I mean, that was, I can't believe it was a tall order to get 6 more months, but I told the chair of the committee, Madam Chair, we told you for years that all of these planning elements that you're putting in are going to hurt both the cities. Shelton benefits from it as well because they're on the same planning cycle, but it'll hurt both the cities and the county's ability to comply with your planning document. So we were able to get them that. I guess I'll talk about one more initiative I'm working on. I'm always looking for ways to help domestic violence survivors survive the criminal justice system. And right now, for what I see, and I've been to a lot of court proceedings in family court, and I believe the judicial branch is too powerful in Washington State when it comes to it, and I really believe that domestic violence survivors are getting shortchanged. And we need to show them a heck of a lot more love and compassion than we're showing right now, and I will never stop working in that arena, and we did not make enough movement there. We were able to stop, I think, there was 2 bills that we worked on that would have given the judicial branch a heck of a lot more authority when it came to family court, and we were able to defeat that. So that's the big win there. But again, I will work really hard and I will never stop working to make sure that the domestic violence survivor gets the due that they deserve and is no longer traumatized just because they were begging the government for help and an ability to get away from the terror that they've been going through. With that, I'll save my rest of my time for your questions. Thank you.
All right, good to see everybody. Travis Couture, your other state representative, the newest one. I just want to talk a little bit before I get to the committee work about some of the work we've done with you all in the community here. We've had a very successful term, I guess, the last 2 sessions in the capital budget, especially for Mason County. Record amounts of investments into our community here. And although I see a lot of you individually, I wonder if some of you know how much of you I see of each other, right? Last interim, Dan and myself, we brought the Speaker of the House to tour the mill at Sierra Pacific. As I said on capital budget on that first session, there was just a host of anti-timber sentiment and anti-timber bills. And it's hard to bridge that gap to talk with people who just don't believe in our way of life. And that would, honestly use their power in the majority to put our core industries that we survive on under threat. And so we brought the Speaker of the House to the mill for a tour, and it was great. Thank you, Lisa. And part of the reason was to highlight one of our crown jewels here in Shelton and Mason County, but also to humanize the people that work in that mill, the family wage jobs that it creates, and how it lifts up our entire community that it simply exists. And that by harming timber, it harms families, and it harms all of us here. Everyone would be touched by something like that. And it had an impact. On the first day of this last session, the Speaker of the House gave her opening speech and talked about that tour of the mill. She didn't say Sierra Pacific, the word Sierra Pacific, but she talked about our tour of the mill. And we didn't have any bad timber bills this year. As a matter of fact, we worked with Green Diamond and others, and we had a good bill to help the cleanup of trash in our timberlands. There was a lot of different good little things like that as well, stuff with the WUI code and everything else. Chris Corey, one of my ranking member I'm the assistant ranking member on the Appropriations Committee. He dared me to say "woo-wee" in committee, but I didn't have the guts. So, also record investments in our waterfront, right? The Oakland Bay restoration, nobody said that that could be done. The final phase was under threat. All the permits were done and it was shovel ready, but the governor's budget cut out that money. But we got it done, $5.3 million to not only restore our bay, which helps our environment, but also our yacht club to add more tourism and economic development. And also, 80 to 100 new jobs in the future, which help to give us some more, not just jobs, but also some different variety in our work industries here in Shelton. So that's in partnership with the city of Shelton, in partnership with the yacht club, in partnership with the Squaxin Island. And so we've been working really hard to make sure that we're getting things done for our community. Just this last budget cycle, a little over $5 million for the modernization of some of our smallest schools that don't have the ability to get bonds or levies. And we even passed a bill to help schools access SCAP, which is the school construction program, more easily than before, which really helps out our rural communities and our rural schools, because when kids go to school, they deserve to be in a school that's safe and doesn't have mold or lead in the pipes, right? And so we did a lot of work we focused a lot of our capital budget investments on infrastructure and economic development. A lot of work with the PUDs, both PUD 1 and PUD 3, for electricity transmission, like what Drew talked about with CETA over the next couple decades, where we need to have a lot more electrical transmission. These things aren't cheap. A substation is definitely not cheap. Sheila knows, David knows, and so we've been helping out to pour investments into those infrastructures, but also our water systems as well. These things are critical to bring new industries and businesses into our area, because if you want to come here, really the county almost sells itself. But at the same time, we have to have the amenities available. We have to have the power, we have to have the water, we have to have the sewer, right? The things that nobody sees because they're under the ground, but they're expensive. And so PD1, Kristen, don't see where she's at, I know she's here though. Yeah, we worked to get her over $1 million in 3 different projects. And even though the Manzanita project that she showed me the other day wasn't one of the ones we funded yet, but we funded 3 others, and we're building hundreds of new homes up in Union as a result of that infrastructure. When we have more housing supply, the housing prices drop. And as somebody with a kid about to turn 18 years old, I wonder, can they live here? Can they afford to live here? And of course, there's a lot of people, including Dave Overton in the back, who's done a lot to try to help build us housing supply up in the north end. That stuff's important. We're all in the same boat, and we all got to row in the same direction. And that's why I'm so proud of how we partnered with all of you, the city of Shelton, to help get money for a lot of different projects, and including just recently the design money for the trailhead up here, the multi-use trail. And it's important because our community also relies on tourism, right? Tourism's a huge thing. Our population explodes in the summertime. People from Seattle love coming here, right? And we love their money. and working with Rachel on some of that marketing stuff. We have some of the lowest marketing budget. If you compare us to Oregon, it's not even close. But even though it's still not even close, we actually tripled that money for marketing and tourism over this last biennium. So I'm the assistant ranking member on appropriations, so I get to watch everyone spend your hard-earned money. And I'm also the assistant ranking member on the Human Services, Youth and Early Learning Committee, and I'm also on the Education Committee. So literally, pretty much in Olympia, I deal with everything that involves children, one way or another, whether it's their education or their safety. I've worked very hard because we have a lot of crises in our state right now. I talked about a few of them a minute ago, but one of them is drugs, especially fentanyl. It's 50 to 100 times more dangerous than meth, and And just 10 years ago, meth was the big scary thing. And unfortunately, our local businesses and you know, our town, we see this play out on our streets. But sadly, what you don't see is how it's playing out in our homes and in our schools. Kids are overdosing in schools, little babies and toddlers. There's no ability for the state to remove them from homes where there's fentanyl. And so this is something I care very deeply about and I fought for. We got a little bit done, but it wasn't enough. And it's really hard to swallow because if you think about it, we had almost 3,000 drug deaths in 2022. In 2023, it gets even worse. But 3,000 drug deaths in 1 year, that's more than the people that died in 9/11. That's more than the people, the U.S. service members who were killed in action in Operation Enduring Freedom. That's like 70 OSO landslide disasters. That's the whole population of McCord Air Force Base or Port Ludlow. It's an unacceptable amount of death. And I know all three of us worked very hard. I mean, pretty much everyone worked on fentanyl this year. And we got some things done, but it's just not even close to enough. And we got to do a lot more because these are human beings out on our streets. And yeah, they're suffering through something and maybe they're doing criminal activity and you know, a host of other things. But they're human beings. And right now, the state's policy of harm reduction is harm, as you can plainly see with your own eyes. And we have to do more for that. We have to do more to stop that. We have to, especially when it involves our kids. We got more Narcan kits into the school because one pill can kill, but if we have a Narcan kit available, we give that kid a second chance at life. And that's important. We attempted to put a lot of money into the cleanup of homeless encampments, money that could go to our cities and counties to help clean up some of these encampments which have maybe paraphernalia, needles, maybe they start fires sometimes, maybe there's Department of Health level issues. There could be a lot of different issues. But sometimes we go to clean up, there's not enough money for the cities and counties to go clean up all those encampments. So trust me, there's a lot of work to be done and it can be an emotional topic. There's opinions on both sides that I can definitely respect, but at the end of the day, we have to do what's best for everybody because it's not a harmless, it's not a problem that just harms the individual. It's a problem that's harming our core businesses here downtown too. One last thing, because maybe two if Deidre takes time to get over it. I did pass a bill to help the most medically complex kids in our society by implementing a federal program. So literally, get this, we help more kids coordinated care through Medicaid. I mean, we're talking the sickest of the sick kids in our society, but we also draw federal money and spend less Medicaid dollars doing it. And so those are some of the real solutions that I like. Less of your money to do more for the kids, right? And by streamlining the system and making it easier and better for the whole system to work. And then one last thing, there's a huge problem with indigent defense in our community. You might have saw it in the paper yesterday. I had a bill, and Dan was my co-sponsor, to pump $200 million into counties to help with that indigent defense problem, and also to get above the lowest per capita police line. So it was kind of a 2-for-1 special. That bill didn't get a hearing. However, we did pass a Nikki Torres bill, which is Drew's companion over there in the Senate, to try to do a little bit to help indigent defense. Here's the deal. You need defense lawyers. Yeah. And right now, you don't even need to pass the bar to be a lawyer in Washington. However, you know, but they've also, the court has also reduced the caseload hours that defense lawyers can work. And some people might have their opinions about defense lawyers, but let me tell you this. If the accused goes to court and they've done a crime and the court can't find them a defense attorney, guess what happens? They get released back to do more crime. It's unacceptable, right? And not only just with criminal defense, our prosecutors across the state are having a hard time being staffed as well. So when we talk about public safety, it's kind of an across-the-board crisis. We need more cops on the road. The 35th, Washington State has the lowest per capita police, and also the 35th has the lowest per capita police in Washington. So we have like literally the lowest per capita police in North America. That's unacceptable. We need more cops on the ground. We also need more attorneys, and we need more judges, and we need better jail, and we need a lot of things. So it's a whole wraparound effect in the criminal justice system. And when everything is whole and well-funded and staffed, it works better for all of us. And it works better for the accused, so that someday they're going to get out of jail or prison, so that we can get them the workforce training or whatever else that is needed to get them better, so that they can rejoin society and do good things again. So.
Thank you so
There you
much.
go.
So we do have a little bit of time left, and I want to give you each an opportunity, if there's anything policy-wise that we as the business community looking at economic development should be keeping our eye on moving forward. Obviously, we've got some time leading up to the next session, but there's a lot of issues to tackle. Is there anything that you wanted to touch on before we move on to any Q&A?
Let's just do Q&A.
Yeah, Q&A.
Okay.
Let's just do Q&A.
Yeah, we'll
Perfect.
run out of time, because if you let me talk, I'll talk for another 20 minutes.
I appreciate their self-awareness. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and move on. If there's anyone that would like to ask a question of our legislators, please raise your hand and we'll recognize you. I've got, wow, this is the quietest I've seen a room full of business folks and elected officials in a very long time.
We can go right into wrap-up if they don't want to
Okay.
ask questions.
I imagine that if you have questions you'd like to take offline, we absolutely will have contact information for these folks. One thing I really want to thank you all for is for being available and accessible to us as the chamber, to our business community, and to the commuters. Thank you for all you're doing. I'll kick it back to you guys to share any last thoughts, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
Well, again, thank you, and I should have said this at the beginning. Working with these two guys is fantastic. Their passion in their respective policy areas and is tremendous. And a lot of it you don't see. It's not always about the legislation that gets passed. It's what happens behind the scenes, and they are tireless advocates for you and for people that are going through tough times throughout our district. Sometimes we get these calls and these emails, and we're the last Hail Mary that constituents have sometimes when it comes to something going on in their life. And working with, just working with these guys, and especially when we face down the sexual predator issue with housing them in Thurston County, they go to bat hard. And so I just want to say it's a pleasure to be with you guys and get some of these issues done. I would, I was talking with Deidre before we started here. We're, as a community, whether you want to look at it as the city of Shelton or Mason County, we're in this spot when it comes to economic development that we're not small enough and we're not big enough, right? And so, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm going to continue to advocate that as we continue to get infrastructure dollars in. It's the biggest thing we can do for you. That stuff is expensive. It just is. And in this state, unfortunately, we continue to get governed by lawsuits. And one of them's the fish barrier, and I bring that up because this affects the PUDs. And there's we have the fish barrier issue has to do with when highways were built, and you had a stream or a river that was fish spawning. They didn't do a great job in making those culverts big enough for the fish passages to be there, and so we got sued a number of years ago under the various tribal laws that it affected the fishing treaty rights because it affected production of salmon, and that's true. But again, this is one of those huge lawsuits that has impacted the way we spend money, and so right now DOT's got a number of projects going on, and when those happen, it's always easier to open a trench one time, right? Whether it's laying fiber optics or it's laying power lines, fixing trenches, whatever the case may be. The PUD's had a $6 million shortfall to be able to meet what's going on. And when I say PUDs, it's statewide. A lot of it is in Western Washington. To be able to take advantage of some of these situations where we're doing these repairs. And normally that'd be a capital budget thing, but we were capped at what we could do at the capital budget level of like roughly $150,000 per member per district. Well, that's well short of $6 million. And I bring this up because, and I think this is the way the three of us work real well, is it's about relationships, right? So I went to our operating budget writers and said, we've got to get these funds. They're like, well, it should be in the capital budget. I know, but we can't. So here I am. And we didn't get the full 6, but we got a few million out of it. And it's things like that because that would affect your rates. because they don't have the funds to be able to do it. And it's doing things like that, and so when it comes, again, just bringing that back to economic development and, you know, the business community, we've got to continue to identify those issues and proactively address them before they're really big. And that is the biggest thing, that hearing from you early and often on what those issues are is important. And one last thing that I know I'm going to probably irritate some of our local elected officials on this, and I'll quasi-apologize. Kevin, Sharon, who else is in here? So there was a bill at the beginning of this session that so right now, local governments are capped at raising property taxes 1% on an annual basis, right? Without going to the voters for more. So they can do it up to 1% without asking for a vote. There was a bill at the beginning of the session that would have increased that to 3%. Sounds great if you're budgeting at the local level, right? But I have yet to hear from a local citizen, property taxpayer saying, hey, can you triple my rates? I don't hear that, right? And I made this a big to-do, and we got this killed in the Senate, not being able to bring it to a vote. And I bring this up because I think all too often, and when I say we, I'm talking all levels of government, we get tone deaf to what's going on for working families. And I think, and I said this in a press conference, it should be extraordinarily difficult. I don't care if you're at the federal level, the state level, county, city, or the Belfair Water District. It should be incredibly difficult for you to budget if you're in government. It should not be easy. And I firmly believe that, because we're fiduciaries of your money. And we've got to get back to recognizing that. And you know, there's tools that we can do. The state has imposed countless unfunded mandates on local government. I acknowledge that, and we've got to fix that, right? And there are a number of things we can be doing at the state level that'll have a direct positive impact on local units of government that makes it hard for them to budget. Those are things that we should be addressing, but it shouldn't be always coming back to you asking for your hard-earned dollars. I look at the state budget in the 12 years I've been there, it's more than doubled in that time frame. Has your family income doubled? And yet we're always coming back and asking. And I think we finally got that message through, and this is the first budget in a long time that didn't have tax increases. We didn't get the tax relief, but we'll take step one, right? So with that, let us know early and often what you're facing, what those issues are, and we can identify them. And again, it's not always getting it done through a bill. Sometimes it's things in the back of a budget that can happen. But appreciate the opportunity to be here to serve you and to work with these guys. And flip it over to Dan Travis. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for what you do. Thanks for reaching out early and often. The sooner we know about things, the quicker we can get to them. I have to echo what Drew said. Thank you for giving me these two as partners. We absolutely champion your issues. From finding out about sexually violent predators being released into a very rural community with no supervision whatsoever and no security, and defeating that with the help we empowered Thurston County. Thurston County didn't know what to do, and we reminded them, you have the power of ordinance. And so they exercised their permitting power, and they were able to defeat an unsupervised home in a very rural community, very far away from any law enforcement. We were able to defeat that through ordinances. So that's how we work really well with all of you, and we can help all of you do that. So all of you locally elected officials, if you're finding problems with state, there's a problem with a state agency or that sort of thing, reach out. We can advocate on behalf, and sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we can make it go away together because we worked as a team. It is time right now. All of my colleagues talked about the problems that we're facing, the crises that we're facing, but we can't take the failure of Homeland Security to protect our borders any longer for granted. And I'm not talking about just the people, the criminals that we're importing. I'm talking about it's easier now to import methamphetamine in Washington State and fentanyl than it is for you to get a package from Amazon. You can get tons and tons and tons of this crap across the border. Since Department of Homeland Security has failed us, I have called on the governor to declare a state of emergency. He has not done it, but I'm going to continue to call on the next administration, because we're going to get a new governor, to declare the reality on the ground that we are living in a state of emergency right now, and it is affecting every Washingtonian. What the state of emergency that I see would do, it would bring all state agencies to bear. I talk about the Department of Homeland Security falling down on the job they are, but you know what? DOT might be able to help in conjunction with Washington State Patrol. Can they team up, and can they put some more time and effort in that? Can we suspend or reduce some of the permitting requirements and tax requirements when we're developing treatment facilities? Can we reinstate civil commitment for those that can't take care of themselves in society so we can rebuild their lives? Can we do that? Can we stop ignoring those people that are dying in their own filth right now? Can we empower them? Can we embolden them? And can we help them rebuild their lives? We can. And there's efforts that I'm working on with members of the majority party to do just that. To actually provide resources to help the people that are suffering the most in our communities. Sexually violent predators and those that survive sexually violent crimes should have way different benefits. Way different benefits. They need to do better in court. We should not allow a court system that the defense comes in there and calls the poor woman who barely survived a sexual assault a slut or a whore. That kills me a little bit every time I hear it. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times a day that happens. I urge all of you locally elected officials to go to family court and see how it happens. Go and do something about it locally if you can. Work with us to come up with different ways, different court procedures to make it better. There is so much we can do, but there are many problems. And these crises, if we can't get a federal fix or a state fix, we can do it here. And we've proved it many, many, many times if we work together. I'm committed to doing all those things. I thank you so much for all the work you do and all the passion you have, because it matches mine. Like, I love this place. This is my home. It has always been my home, and I will fight like a rabid animal on your behalf. There are so many successes that we had. I mean, this last time we set you up and we said, capital budget, we're not going to get a lot of money. Well, we got some money for this county, and we did some good things. We also are going to build some roads, and we're going to do congestion relief and start a longer-term project with the city of Shelton, and I'm really happy that we were able to get the rest of that money. And let's see what else we can work on to make sure those corridors are through flowing corridors to where we can move our goods and services and our people safely and comfortably to and from their place of business. The improvements that we did for safety on Highway 101, I'm really proud of. A lot of people think that cable barriers don't save people. They absolutely do. Look at how much energy transfer that they can absorb and how many people don't die in a head-on collision because we get through there, and we're going to do a lot more of that on 101. We need to do all those things. I thank you all so much for being here, for continuously supporting, and for working with me and this team to make sure that we are on the top of the list and not the bottom of the list. Thank you so much.
Well, I don't know how much more I can add to all of that. No, I really appreciate working with Dan and Drew. I'm the young, fiery one that gets into trouble, and oftentimes they're the ones telling me to calm down or chill out or hold on a second. And it's really good to have, I've known them for a long time, but it's really good to have their mentorship. They've been around a while, so they know how the sausage is made there in Olympia, and it's been really nice to watch and learn from them, and to become better as a result of it. And also, it's really been great to work with all of you. There's a really great chance that some of you don't always agree with the things that I have to say, and that's totally okay. We all work together anyways when it comes to a lot of the different things that are important to Mason County. It all feels to me like we're all pulling the rope in the same direction, which is really important. You guys make my job easier, because you've been quick to come with the priorities and the different projects that we need, and very helpful to stop by an Olympia and advocate for those things, or to bring us on different tours. Very open to do that, right? So it's been really great to work with you all, and you know, despite any differences that there, I mean, you guys all agree with me, right? But, all the time, but even when there's differences, you know, we come together as friends and we try to find common ground. You know, I think that's really important. And Drew touched on something that also I like, and that is, you know, to be really mindful about what working families go through, what families with kids go through, what they're going through in our schools. The cost of living is out of control right now. Everything from gas to housing to you name it. Some of that's within the state's control, some of it's not, right? And we might be in for harder economic times. It could get tougher, which means budgets could get tougher, right? Not just at home, but in the government as well. And so, you know, it's just something to be mindful of, that we do need to have a lot of projects and a lot of needs, but so do our families at home. And I just want to touch on one final issue, and then I'll shut up. And it's one that we haven't talked about yet, and that's childcare. So childcare is something I do in one of my committees, and we fought. We even had WASAC, which is the county's association, try to help out with my last bill. They were supportive of it. What I wanted to do was give local options to childcare deserts. So right now, if you do childcare licensing, you go through Department of Children, Youth, and Families, and you got to follow the state regulations. They're pretty onerous, which makes it impossible to build a supply of childcare. And then when there is childcare, it's mega expensive, especially if you have an infant. And so if you're in one of the rural areas, and including our area, including our entire district, you're in a childcare desert. And we just simply don't have childcare. So you might hear in Olympia, more subsidies for childcare. Let me tell you this, if you don't have childcare, where are the subsidies going? Out of your pocket, straight to King County. That doesn't help us at all here, right? And so, even though the bill didn't pass, we need to work on that, I think, as a community. We did get some things for Turning Point to start building a little child care center for their domestic violence survivors, which is important. But we need a lot more, because everything I hear is workforce shortage. Well, guess what? Your workforce shortage is directly related to your lack of child care. And you know what? Some parents, they want to go continue their career. So by going down the path we're going, we're telling, oftentimes it's moms, right? That no, you have to stay home because the cost of child care is too high. You have to forego your career and your income, which, by the way, hurts your family budget. I mean, it might be great to stay at home with kids, unless it's spring break like it is for our kids right now. But it's a dark horse issue, meaning it's not like sexy, right? But it's something critically important to, like, literally everybody in our community, no matter what they believe. And that's something I'm committing to work on, but I think I need help from everybody here to help try to build out that child care. Or when we come up with something that will help out the child care deserts in our area, that we all show up to the table when me and Dan or Drew have a bill. We show up to testify on those things. This is important to our community. We need this. Those testimonies matter in Olympia, right? And sometimes we have people from our community testify, but we need more. We need more. Those stories matter. Those narratives matter. Just like when you write a grant, those stories matter. It matters in Olympia when you're trying to pass a bill. So I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've done with me and these guys, and thank you to them as well. And you guys make my life a lot easier, and it's a pleasure working with all of you. It's really the honor of my life, and looking forward to doing it again.
This opportunity to express gratitude on behalf of the chambers and our entire business community for the work you're doing in our legislature, not just during session, but year-round. So thank you for being there. Thank you for taking on so much in public service and being really cognizant of the needs of our businesses, of our communities. And when we're looking at things like infrastructure, childcare, transportation, we all know how impactful that is. So please, as they said, early and often, share those thoughts with the Government Affairs Committee at the Chamber, with the Government Relations Committee at the EDC, with your employers, and by all means with these gentlemen, as well as our local electeds. We really have an opportunity to be solutions-minded and look for ways that we can build Mason County and continue to do so. So thank you, gentlemen, for everything you do. We really appreciate you.